Welcome to today's video on why a revocable living trust can be crucial even if you're under 30. If you're a young professional with growing assets or planning a family, this is for you. We'll go beyond the hype about probate and focus on the real value, control, and protection. Let's begin by reframing some common assumptions. Then we'll explore how a trust actually works, when it makes sense, and how to set one up. Now, to set the stage, let's start with a common misconception. Here's the misconception. A simple will and beneficiary designations feel sufficient, especially when probate in your state might be relatively straightforward. But that narrow focus overlooks what happens if you're incapacitated, how your assets are managed for young or vulnerable beneficiaries, and how consistent instructions are applied across all your accounts. A revocable living trust steps in to give continuity, control, and privacy across life events. With that in mind, let's preview what we'll cover today so you know what to listen for. In this video, we'll cover 6 areas. First, we'll explain why probate avoidance, while useful, is often oversold. Second, we'll define what a revocable living trust is and how it works. Third, we'll discuss scenarios where an RLT makes sense for people under 30. Fourth, we'll walk through practical setup steps and the cost-benefit picture. Fifth, we'll highlight common mistakes and how to avoid them. Finally, we'll check your understanding with quick quizzes. With the roadmap clear, let's contrast myths with reality. Let's unpack 4 myths. First, probate is not universally terrible. In many states, it's simpler than advertised. The greater benefit of a trust is coordinated control and continuity. Second, relying on beneficiary designations alone can undermine your plan. They usually bypass your will and can fail to provide instructions during incapacity or for minors. Third, trusts are not reserved for the ultra-wealthy. They are organizational tools at many asset levels. Fourth, a revocable trust does not provide asset protection from your own creditors. It's primarily for management and flexibility. Having reframed expectations, let's define what a revocable living trust actually is. A revocable living trust is a legal agreement that holds your assets under rules you set today, while you remain in control. You're usually both the grantor and the initial trustee, which means you can change or revoke the trust at any time. Crucially, you name a successor trustee, who takes over if you're incapacitated or after your death, typically without the delays of a court process. A pour-over will works alongside the trust to capture any assets not already titled in the trust, and powers of attorney coordinate authority for financial and healthcare decisions. Funding the trust is the practical step of retitling assets into the trust, or aligning beneficiary designations so the plan works as intended. Now that we know what it is, let's visualize how assets flow with and without a trust. This flowchart compares 2 pathways. On the left, without a trust, incapacity can trigger a court-appointed conservator or guardian, which often introduces delays and limited authority. At death, assets typically pass through probate court with a public process before beneficiaries receive distributions. On the right, with a revocable trust, your successor trustee can step in immediately upon incapacity to manage bills and care expenses. After death, the successor trustee privately administers the trust and follows your distribution instructions, such as staged payouts for minors or ongoing management for vulnerable beneficiaries. This contrast highlights the continuity and control a trust provides. Next, let's discuss why this matters specifically if you're under 30. Even in your 20s, the risks addressed by a trust are real. Incapacity can happen at any age, and a trust ensures that a person you select can immediately manage bills, care decisions, and investments. If you have children or plan to, the trust allows you to structure distributions with guardrails, like staging payouts or tying funds to education milestones. You also gain privacy and continuity, reducing public exposure of your finances, and simplifying administration if you move between states. A trust centralizes instructions across accounts and avoids conflicting or incomplete beneficiary designations. It also empowers your trustee to manage digital assets, including passwords, wallets, and subscriptions. For cohabiting or blended relationships, the trust clarifies rights and reduces the potential for conflict. With the benefits clear, let's weigh costs and trade-offs. This table compares the practical inputs and outcomes. An attorney-drafted trust costs more but provides custom guidance and compliance. DIY tools are cheaper but carry quality and compliance risks. Funding the trust takes effort. measured in hours over a few weeks, and is essential for the plan to function. The benefits include trustee continuity, immediate management during incapacity, structured rules for minors or vulnerable beneficiaries, and increased privacy. Probate cost and time savings vary by state. The key value lies in control and continuity. With value in mind, let's walk through how to set up an RLT. Start by clarifying your goals. Who manages your affairs if you cannot? Who inherits? And under what conditions? Select a reliable successor trustee and backups, possibly separating investment responsibility if needed. Work with an attorney licensed in your state to draft the trust and align it with your will and powers of attorney. Then sign with the required formalities. Funding is critical. Retitle financial accounts and record deeds for real estate as appropriate. Align beneficiary designations so they do not bypass the trust unintentionally. Update your pour-over will and powers of attorney to reflect the trust. Organize documents physically and digitally to ensure access, then review annually or after life changes. Finally, coordinate the trust with your tax, insurance, and financial planning. To check your understanding, let's try a quick quiz. Question: which of the following is the primary advantage of a revocable living trust for young professionals? Options: 1. Avoid probate only. 2. Greater control during incapacity and for beneficiaries. 3. Reduce income tax. 4. Automatic asset protection from your creditors. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is greater control during incapacity and for beneficiaries. Probate avoidance may occur, but it is not the central value. Revocable trusts do not reduce income taxes, and they do not provide automatic asset protection from your own creditors. Next, let's highlight common mistakes so you can avoid them. Several pitfalls can undermine your plan. First, not funding the trust is the most common failure. Assets left outside the trust may require probate or follow conflicting instructions. Second, inconsistent beneficiary designations can bypass the trust and defeat your planning goals. Third, failing to name capable successor trustees and backups with explicit powers creates gaps during emergencies. Fourth, plans become outdated after life changes like marriage, children, moving, or major purchases. Fifth, neglecting digital assets leaves a mess of inaccessible accounts. Sixth, assuming a revocable trust protects assets from your own creditors is incorrect. Finally, failing to coordinate retirement accounts and life insurance with the trust can create tax and distribution inconsistencies. Now, let's visualize how an RLT helps during incapacity. This sequence shows what happens if you become incapacitated. Once the trust's criteria are met, such as a physician letter, the successor trustee presents a trust certificate and identification to financial institutions to gain authority. They pay bills, service loans, and coordinate with your care team, all without waiting for a court appointment. The trustee provides periodic accounting and updates for transparency. This illustrates how a revocable trust delivers continuity in real time. Next, let's provide a practical, markdown-style checklist you can use to fund your trust. Here is a practical checklist. Begin by inventorying all assets, including digital wallets and accounts. Obtain a trust certification or abstract to present to institutions. Open a trust checking account, move appropriate cash reserves, and retitle brokerage accounts. For real estate, record a deed to the trust where appropriate and in line with state requirements. Align beneficiary designations to avoid bypassing the trust, and handle retirement accounts carefully to maintain tax advantages, often naming individuals or a properly designed trust. For life insurance, consider naming the trust if you need controlled distributions for minors. Update your password manager and include trustee access instructions for digital assets. Ensure payroll deposits and bill payments route through the intended accounts. Finally, schedule annual and life event reviews to keep the plan current. Let's take one more quick quiz to reinforce these points. Question: a transfer on death designation on all accounts makes a trust unnecessary. True or false? You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is false. While transfer on death or payable on death designations can pass assets outside probate, they usually bypass your broader plan, do nothing during incapacity, and can be problematic for minors or nuanced instructions. A trust coordinates instructions and provides continuity. Now let's cement the most important takeaways. The key points are as follows. First, Revocable living trusts exist to provide control, continuity, and privacy. They are not primarily tax or asset protection tools. Second, funding the trust and aligning beneficiary designations are essential to making the plan actually work. Third, incapacity planning is as important as death planning at any age. Fourth, if you are under 30 with assets, a partner, or children on the horizon, start early with a simple but complete plan. Fifth, review the plan annually and after life events to keep it aligned. Before we close, a brief but important disclaimer. This content is for educational purposes only and is not legal, tax, or financial advice. Laws vary by state and situation, and outcomes depend on your specific facts. You should consult a licensed attorney and qualified professionals in your jurisdiction before taking action. With that in mind, let's summarize your next steps. To move forward, list your goals, key people, and distribution timelines. Schedule a consultation with a local estate planning attorney to tailor the plan to your state's laws. Inventory your assets and prioritize which to fund first. Set a 60 to 90-day timeline for implementation with weekly checkpoints. Finally, put an annual review on your calendar now so your plan stays current. Now let's wrap up with a quick request. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, please like the video, share it with someone who could benefit, and subscribe for more practical planning content. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, including what you might name your trust. See you in the next video.